open your book to page 305. Today's lesson is to learn the relationship between roots and coefficients. Okay, so the root equation that you're going to see is on page 305 in that red box. So you got x squared minus r1 plus r2 x plus r1 r2 equal to 0. So r1, r2 are your roots, or the answer. So when you solve the equation, the answer you get, those are roots. So basically means the answer, the two answers, right? When you add, it will give you this coefficient. When you multiply the two answers, you will get this coefficient. Now the way that to use this is, most of the time you have the equation, you have to solve for the answers, right? But now they're going backward. They're going to give you answers. Then you have to get the equation. So the way to use this is, if you go to example 2, it says find a quadratic equation. Quadratic equation means you have the x squared. Okay? Find a quadratic equation having the roots. So you have a r1 equal to 5 plus 3i over 2. And I'm going to put r2 below it instead of sign. So 5 minus 3i over 2. So you have these two answers. So what equation will give you these two answers? That's what it's asking. So what you want to do is go ahead and write your R1, R2 equation. So this is called a root equation. Okay. So what you do is first always write down your root equation. So you got x squared minus r1 plus r2 x plus r1 r2 equal to 0. Now what you do is go and start to add this together. So when you add, see what happens when you add, right? See the plus 3i minus 3i, this will cancel out. Okay, so plus 3i minus 3i will cancel out. So basically you end up with 5 over 2 plus 5 over 2. Okay, so again, this and this will cancel out. So you got 5 over 2 plus 5 over 2 will give you 10 over 2, which will give you 5. Okay, so you kind of have to do it mentally and just put it down. Plus, now when you multiply, you have to multiply conjugate. These are conjugates, right? So when you multiply the conjugate, you just multiply the corresponding part, and you can just multiply each part. So use your fingers. So 5 times 5 is 25. Plus times minus is minus. 3 times 3 is 9. I times I is negative 1, so this becomes plus. And the denominator, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. And then you go and simplify. So x squared minus 5x. Use your calculator, you can work it out. Now make sure you push equal before you divide. Okay, so this will give you 34 over 4, which will give you 17 over 2. Okay. Now, for your final answer, you should not have. You should put in the standard form. So standard form should not have any fractions or decimals, and you want to lower the number as much as possible. So you want to multiply everything by 2. So you're going to get 2x squared minus 10x plus 17 equal to 0, and that is your answer. Okay. So that's what this is for. Okay. Now, this is called the sum of the answer, the sum of the roots. Okay, so this is the sum, and this is the product. So if you go to page 306, and if you look at number 2, you have 4x squared plus 5x minus 2 equal to 0. The instruction says give the sum and the product of the roots of each equation. So if you don't know these, then you have to solve the equation, get the two answers, then you have to add the two answers together to get the sum. You have to multiply the two answers together to get product, right? But because you know the root equation, you don't need to do that anymore. Okay? All you have to do is match this with this. All you want to do is match these two together. But before you do that, you have to get rid of this coefficient first. So go and divide by 4. So you're going to get x squared plus 5 over 4x minus 1 over 2 equal to 0. And then what you need to do is write the equation so you can match up. So now you can see the sum. So notice the signs are opposite. So you just match it up, right? So this will equal to rest of the stuff. So the sum of the roots will equal to negative 5 over 4, right? So this will equal to everything else, okay? So it'll be negative 5 over 4. And the product is this over here, so it's equal to negative 1/2, okay? So this way you don't have to actually solve the equation to get the two answers. And then you have to add and you have to multiply. You can just go and match it up. So that's what that is, okay? Now, you don't have to memorize the rest of them, but for those on the math team, you should, okay? And to memorize the equation is very simple. What you do is you go by pattern. Okay, so for example, you're going to have, if you have only 1 degree, so you're going to get x minus r1 equal to 0. Okay, so when you have only one answer, right? And you can solve, okay? Now when you have the square, you're going to get x squared minus r1 plus r2 x. So I'm going to write it out first, and then I will explain to you the pattern. So it'll be very easy to remember. Okay, so this is for the square. For the cube, I'm going to go down so I don't run out of space. Okay, I'm going to do this. Now for the fourth power, you very rarely get to the fourth power, but for the math team, you know, in the math meet, you're going to see this probably quite often, okay? Oh wait, this is not right. This is not right. R1, R2, R1, R3, R1, R4, and R2, R3, R2, R4. Oh wait, R1, R2, R1, R3, R4, R2, R3, this one is x cubed, x squared. Missing 3. Missing 2. It looks very complicated, but it's not. Okay. Okay, so let me explain to you how this works. So what you do is first, you write the x in the descending order, right? So this one have x, right? So that's it, right? Over here you got x squared, x, no x, right? Over here you got x cubed, x squared, x, no x, right? So you can notice 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 power, right? Then after that, your coefficient. So you take none at a time, so that's only one term, right? Then you take no root at a time. Then you take one root at a time, and then you get the then you take both at a time, right? So none, one at a time, two at a time. Over here, you take none at a time, you take one root at a time. So you got one here, one here, one here, right? So none at a time, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time, okay? And notice the pattern. Again, this one, when you take two at a time, one is going to be missing, right? So this one is missing R3, missing R2, missing R1, right? So you go by pattern. Okay, so you have no root at all. So you got one root at a time, two at a time, three at a time. Over here you do the same thing, right? And notice the sign. The sign is always alternating. Begin with a positive. So it's positive minus. Over here it's positive minus positive, right? So plus minus plus minus. Over here plus minus plus minus plus. It will alternate. Okay? And again over here you take none at a time, you take one root at a time. Then you take two at a time. So you start with R1. So you got R1, R2, R1, R3, R1, R4, right? So once you run out of R1, then you do the R2. Okay? So you go R2, R3. You don't need an R2, R1 because you already have over here already, right? So you go R2, R3, R2, R4. Once you run out of R2, then you go to R3. Okay? So R3, R4, right? And you're done, right? So again, learn how to do the rotational, combination. So again, so you got none at a time, take one at a time, take two at a time, then you take three at a time. So there are four roots. When you take three at a time, one of them is going to be missing, right? So this one would be missing the R4, missing R3, missing the R2, missing the R1. Okay? So again, none at a time, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time, and then four at a time. So this would be everything, right? And again, if you notice a number of terms, remember the Pascal triangle? See, this is 1, and this would be 1, 1. So see over here, you got 1. So this one would be, so this is a 1 power, right? Remember, this is row 0, right? Remember the Pascal triangle? This is row 0, right? And this is row 1. So this is for 1 power, right? And row 2, this is 1, 2, 1. See that? So it's 1, 2, 1. See, 1 term, 2 terms, 1 term, right? 1, 2, 1. Okay, and then over here you're going to get 1, 3, 3, 1, right? See, 1 term, 3 term, 3 term, 1 term. See that? So over here you're going to be 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, right? So 1 term, 4 term, 6 term, 4 term, 1 term, right? See, 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, right? See how everything see how amazing math is? It seems like totally unrelated and yet they're all tying together, okay? Okay, so the one is going to be very useful and you're going to probably come across a lot is the cube. So let's go and do the cube again, okay? So when you're doing the cube, right? Let's say if you're doing the cube, so you start with x cubed, so it's plus minus x squared plus x minus, right? So again, x cubed, x squared, x, and the 0 power, right? And it's plus minus, right? And then after you take one at a time, so it'd be R1 plus R2 plus R3, right? Take one at a time. Then you take two at a time. So two at a time would be R1, R2 plus R1, R3. Again, you start with the first one, you have all the combination, and then when you run out of R1, you go to R2 plus R2, R3, and that's it, right? So you take none at a time, one at a time, two at a time, and three at a time. So this means R1, R2, R3, all three at the same time. Okay, and that's your equation. Now, when you're doing a square, again, if you're doing a square root equation, you're going to have x squared. So plus, minus. Again, get your x first. Okay, so get your coefficient first. So again, plus, minus, plus, right? X squared, x to the 1, x to the 0, right? And again, now you do the roots. You take none at a time, so now you have to do one at a time. So it would be R1, R2, right? So again, one at a time, and over here would be two at a time. So it would be R1, R2, right? When I say one at a time, means you do one each time, and two at a time means both together, right? And that's your equation. So that way it's very easy to memorize. So don't try to rely on rote memorization. Rely on understand the pattern, and you can do it for the 5th power, 6th power, whatever power you have to do. Okay, but this is extremely useful. Okay, the cube equation. So you need to know this two. This two will be very useful. Okay. Okay, so let's go over more problems. Let's go over a few more problems. let's go to let's go to 28. Okay, so 28, it says if 3.25 is one of the root, so R1 equal to 3.25. And you have this equation, you have 2x squared plus bx plus 26 equal to 0. Find the other root and the value of b. So you're looking for R2 and you're looking for b. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to go and get your root equation and play the matching game. So first you need to divide by 2. You have to get rid of this number. So dividing by 2. So you're going to get x squared plus b over 2 x plus 13 equal to 0. Then you're going to write your root equation. So you're going to have x squared minus r1 plus r2 x plus r1 r2 equal to 0. So by doing the matching, you can see that r1 plus r2 equal to negative b over 2. Right? R1, R2 equal to negative b over 2. And R1, R2 equal to 13. Right? You just match. So in this case, you know the R1. See over here? So you have to figure out which equation you need to use first. So they give you the R1. So substitute. And then you divide. Right? You can substitute from here, right? So divide by 3.25. 3.25. So R2 is equal to, let me get the calculator, punch in the numbers. Okay, so R2 equal to 4. And once you find R2 equal to 4, you come over here, you can substitute to figure out your B. Okay, so R1 is 3.25. R2 is 4, equal to negative B over 2. So get your calculator, you can add. So you got 7.25 equal to negative b over 2. And so you multiply by negative 2. So b equal to negative 14.5. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so let's go and do one more. Let's do number 30. Okay, number 30, it says if 1 plus I is one of the root. So R1 equal to 1 plus I. You're looking for R2. Okay. And look for the other root and the value of B. Okay, so right away, you know that in order to notice the original equation, the original equation is x squared plus bx plus 2i equal to 0. Okay. So notice that from here you know that this has to be conjugate. Okay. Let's go and match things up. So you got x squared minus r1 plus r2 x plus r1 r2 equal to 0. Well, actually, this is not a conjugate because you have an I over here. Okay, so let's just go and match it up. So R1 plus R2 equal to negative B. Right? You have to watch the sign. And you have R1, R2 equal to 2I. So you substitute this into here. So 1 plus I, R2 equal to 2I. Right? You substitute. Then you divide. So R2 equal to 2I. Divide by 1 plus I. Okay. Now you have to simplify these, right? Okay. If you simplify this, you can see that the R1 you have to be it's going to be work it out. So you get 1 minus I, right? You have to use a conjugate, right? So R2 equal to 2I times 1 minus I. Okay, don't multiply out yet. So on the bottom, you're going to get 1 minus, and I is negative 1, so it becomes plus 1. So notice the 2 will cancel out. So R2, it will cancel out with that. So R2 is going to be equal to I minus I squared becomes plus 1. So R2 is 1 plus I. Okay? From here, right? So now you have to look for B. Okay? So you substitute, and if you know that both are the same, so you can just substitute. You're going to get 2 plus 2I equal to negative B. So B equal to negative 2 minus 2I. Okay? So that's why you have to know how to use it. You can just write out your root equation and just do the matching. Okay? When you have to do this kind of. Okay? Let's go and do one more. Let's go and do number 22. So number 22 is very straightforward. Okay, you have negative 2 plus square root of 2I over 5. So that's your R1. And your R2 equal to negative 2 minus square root of 2I over 5. So you can first, right away, write down your root equation. So x squared minus R1 plus R2, x plus R1, R2 equal to 0, right? So x squared minus. So to add these, you can notice these are conjugate, so this will cancel out. So you got negative 2 over 5 plus negative 2 over 5, you're going to get negative 4 over 5, right? You just add a fraction. So this is going to be a negative 4 over 5. Again, the conjugate part is going to cancel out. Okay, so this part is going to cancel out. So you end up with negative 2 over 5 plus negative 2 over 5 give you negative 4 over 5. Okay, now when you're doing the conjugate, when you're doing the multiplication, when you're doing the conjugate, right? You just multiply the corresponding part when you're doing the conjugate. So negative 2 times negative 2 will give you positive 4. Plus times minus will give you minus. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 will give you 2. I times I will give you negative 1. So this becomes plus. Okay? And on the bottom, 5 times 5 will give you 25. So your equation becomes x squared plus 4 over 5x plus, this will give you 6 over 25 equal to 0. And then you have to multiply everything by 25, right? You cannot have this as your final answer. So multiply by 25. So you get 25x squared plus, cancel it out, so you get 20x plus 6 equal to 0, and that is your final answer. Okay? So it looks complicated, but again, you just do the matching and just add and you multiply and that's your answer. Okay? Okay, so let's go and do some practice.